wanted to have a little chat about moulding and moulding compounds and how to use them. The many different ways that I've used them in the past, and you may have done it yourself, but I just thought I'd go through a couple of things that I've done with my moulding and moulding compounds and various things like that, and see if if anything's new for you. Maybe there's an idea there. So, first of all, to say when it comes to making molds, it's one of the brilliant, easiest things to do. Hi, Debs. Where are you from? North Carolina. Wow. Thank you for joining me from North Carolina. Um, so yeah, it's one of the easiest things to do with for metal clay is to make a mold and then to push the clay into the mold and pop it out, and you've got an instant result, and it's fabulous, it's fantastic. But there's this kind of right and wrong ways of doing it, I suppose, or there's more successful ways of doing. That's perhaps the things I wanted to say. So I'm just going to share with you a few tips that I've used along the way, and I teach, and hopefully there might be something in there that will help you if you've ever struggled. So, moulding compounds. There's lots of different brands of moulding compounds on the market. Siligum, I think, is pretty much a market leader here in the UK. You can buy this from Hobbycraft, most big Hobbycraft stores, etc., etc. You can buy it from Metal Clay, buy it online. I know there's other people that use the amazing mold putty or moulding putty. That comes highly recommended as well for the definition that you can get out of it and its ease of use. There are some reusable moulding compounds, and these tend to come like a gel-like consistency, and you can heat them up in the microwave and they turn into a far more liquidy consistency, and then you can put them over, or push your whatever it is you want to mold into the gel, and then as it cools it hardens, and then you've got that mold that you can reuse. And I think some of those, there's one called composite mold flex gel, and I know that's reusable and it's food safe as well, so you can use it for perhaps doing chocolate flowers and chocolate leaves and things like that. There's easy molds. The one I use most regularly, I'm going to show you, is Quicksil. This is Quicksil, and this is the one I use most of all. You can buy this online, and the reason I use this is because it comes in great big catering tubs like this. Because as a teacher I use a lot of this when I'm teaching through my courses, my workshops, my classes and such like. So yeah, and I quite like this because it's also, as using this, it's quite a slow curing. It's got about a 15 minutes cure time on it, which can have its advantages and disadvantages. I find when I'm teaching, some of the really fast curing moulding compounds can cure a little bit too quickly for beginners, because perhaps they are a little bit more hesitant about what they're doing, and they're a little bit more cautious over what they're doing, so they're spending a little bit more time. Hi Joy. So yeah, I find the longer curing time of the moulding compounds sometimes an advantage for working with beginners in metal clay, because it just gives them that time to manipulate and mix it together without it going off in their hands too quickly. So that's why I like the Quicksil. I like the definition I get out of it, and that longer curing time for my beginners in teaching. So there's lots of different types of moulding compound. I'm sure if you're already using some, you've got your favourite. It's worth trying different ones to see which one works best for you. It'll depend on what you want to mould, I guess. So try different ones and see which works for you. But this is what I use. Siligum again is just amazing. It's fantastic. I do use that as well, but that doesn't really come in catering tubs. It tends to come in smaller quantities, so I just like that. for the size of the bottles that I get. So who else has joined me? Paula. Hi Paula. Hi Helen. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. So you can make lots of wonderful little replicas of originals from your moulding compound. Now, going back to when I started out in metal clay, yeah, I, like many people, you end up with a lot of scrappy bits, things that you're not so successful with, or bits of excess clay that end up in your scrap pot, and I did accumulate quite a bit. And I had a workshop with a lady called Patty, who was a lapidrist. But because she was a lapidrist, she would walk along the beach and go and collect some amazing stones and come home and polish them up. And she knew exactly what she was looking for. She found some amazing jaspers and all sorts of beautiful things. But she also collected some fabulous shells. And she brought this shell into me one day, and I just went, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And so I took a whacking big chunk of moulding compound and took a mould, it's huge, of this shell, of this enormous shell. And one day when I ended up with all these bits of scrap, I used my scrap made it back into a usable consistency clay and took a mould of this shell. So I've now got this replica shell, which I absolutely adore. It's more like a paperweight. It's quite large. Certainly not anything you'd want to wear because it's a little bit on the large side, but it is beautiful. And I kind of use it these days as just a bit of a ornament, I guess, in my jewellery cabinet. It's in my jewellery cabinet as one of the display items, just to show you that yes, you can mould, you can make amazing moulded replicas of things, but it doesn't have to be full thickness. This has been hollowed out, of course, because can you imagine that if it was full thickness, it would be quite a weight. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that as one of the options of something you can do. So making replicas of absolutely anything. So it could be a shell, it could be, I've got some very pretty little buttons here. Now these are sculpted like buttons, they're really pretty. I've got a whole host of little trinkets and charms. This is a little dragonfly, this is a little rabbit. I've got a whole host of these, and I collect these and find them either again in the hobbycraft stores. You'll find them in the area of the store where they do all the knickknacks for people that do card crafting, or where you find all the beads and things like that. At bead fairs I've found little trinkets and charms. I just find lots and lots of things in all sorts of places. It's amazing where you can find things, really. I collect lots of junk, of course. So these are little tiny elements that you can use on in your designs as you go along. So so you can make replicas of these. I also want to show you some that you can actually sculpt some of your own things. So one of the, let me just move those out of the way, they're my notes. One of the things I'd been working on, or was working on a little while ago, was sculpting a little bear head. If I show you this is a little bear head that I sculpted kind of from scratch. Took me quite a long time to do this, and I don't fancy trying to repeat this ever again because I probably wouldn't manage to repeat it ever again. So using my silicone moulding compound, I've made a mould. So, well, let me say, so I sculpted him, fired it, there you go, fired it. So this is now fired, so this is now my original, and then I can take a mould of him. So he's already fired. He'll never end up on a piece of jewellery as he is, because it took me so long to make him. I thought, no, I'll never be able to repeat that again to make another one. So if I fire this, make a mould of it, and then once I've done that, then this is just another one, This is then, I can push the clay into the mould and make a replica in clay. Now, if I show you the original, I'm going to just pull that out. There's the original, and that's the one in clay. So this one's fired, this one's not fired, but the definition I've got and detail is just brilliant, and I'm really pleased, actually. I'm really pleased that I've got the definition and detail pretty much identical from the fired one to the unfired one. So I'm really pleased with that. So while I do want to use this bear head over and over and over again, I've now got moulds that I can use to repeat that over and over again. So if you ever make something that you're really proud of and think, well, you know, could I ever repeat that ever again? That's a solution. You could make your own mould so that you've got that to repeat again. So just to show you how I started out. So my little bear, like this, started out as a bit of a round with a bit of a lumpy bit on the top. That's how I started it out, and built up and built up and built up to the head. I've also got a wolf's head as well, which I did pretty much the same thing, and I thought, well, you know, I'll never repeat that again either. You know, just working on it for so long, you spend so many hours on something, and you think, well, you know, cost effectively as well, would you want to be able to do that again? So making moulds is a brilliant way to do this. So what else can you do with your moulds? Well, that's some of the things I've done. I've sculpted little Egyptian cats. I've got these little Egyptian cats I sculpted, and I've turned those into little moulds. I've got my two little hares. I don't know where they are, but I have two little hares which I've sculpted. One's facing left, one's facing right, and again, I turned those into moulds, and I sell the little cats and hare moulds these days. And this is another thing I wanted to show you. So this was during this pandemic. I've got a daughter-in-law who's a doctor, and a sister-in-law who is acute critical care nurse. I've got another future daughter-in-law who's in the care sector as well, and I wanted to create something for them that I felt was a token of thank you for all the trouble during this pandemic. And I saw this as an image on the internet, these two hands, sort of caring hands, and in a heart shape. So I sculpted one like so. Again, I just sculpted this one, but while this is quite a nice size, I actually wanted them really dinky sizes because I just wanted to make them as little charms. So once I've made one and fired it, made a mould of it, okay, so then once you've made a mould of that, you can push clay into there, fire that, and when you fire it, it shrinks and it gets smaller, and you repeat this several times over until you get something this size. So from the original size, I've just worked down till I've got one this size of exactly the same thing. So made it, sculpted it, molded it, fired it, it shrunk, then molded that, fired that, it shrunk, molded that, etc, etc. Repeat that process until you get the size you want. So I've ended up with little dinky ones like this, which are now little charm sizes. So you can play around to shrink things as well, to get smaller and smaller items. So using the clay to shrink your pieces. I love the bear and the wolf. Thank you, Francesca. Glad you like the bear and the wolf. So yeah, you can shrink things down in size using your silicone moulding compound and taking great advantage of the fact that your clay shrinks during firing. So that's a great help too. So that's something else you can do. You can make texture plates using your silicone moulding compound. So this is just a piece of silicone moulding compound that has been rolled out to a really, really thin, as you can see, it's about 1.5 mil thick, and I've literally just pressed some sage leaves into this, and I've ended up with these beautiful sage leaf textures on here, which is fabulous. So this is like a texture plate. So you can create your own texture plates with your silicone moulding compound too. Now this one is a little bit odd. I don't know if you can see the texture on here. Now in the past, I used to do a lot of sewing. So this is actually a roll of thread that I've rolled into some silicone moulding compound. So although you can probably see the triangular shapes, what you can't see is the very, very fine lines of the individual bits of thread as well on there as well. But that does come out in your clay when you use this. You get these very, very fine detail into your clay. So you can use your clay or your silicone moulding compound to create your own little texture plates as well. Finding wonderful things to push into your clays. This is something else I've done with my silicone moulding compound. So going back when my sister-in-law, that's my husband's sister, had her first little boy, we went over to see them, of course, as you do with the little boy, and I took impressions of his feet and his hands in silicone moulding compound. Now this was a dreadful attempt at trying to do, but that's his little foot, if you can see. So this is a little bit special because after taking his mould like this of his foot, I then took my silver, pushed it into there, fired it off, and I've now got a little silver foot. I did it with his hand as well. So I've got a silver foot and silver hand, and these I put into a frame. These were my sort of test ones, and I actually did some better ones that I put into a frame, into a picture frame, and then gave her as a christening gift. So that's something else you might want to think of. I know there's lots of fingerprint jewellery and handprint jewellery and that kind of thing, but this is very, very special. Yes, it's very expensive because it's a lot of silver. In fact, let's weigh this. Let's just show you how much silver these ended up at. So this little foot, probably not as much as you think. So that has come out as 22 grams for that little foot. And the hand, I think, is a bit heavier. Yeah, that's 27 grams. 27 grams as the hand and 22 grams for the foot. So yes, it's expensive, but you know, these are long lasting mementos for somebody, and you know, they're very, very special and treasured presents really. Hello Linda, nice to meet you, thank you for joining me. So these will be amazing little gifts, whether you want to put it into a picture frame or if you've got any other ideas of something you can do with those. So yeah, taking hand and footprints is something you can do. And of course you can do that with pet paws as well. I know our pets are amazing, aren't they? And we love them to bits. So this is one, I'll show you this one. This was one of my cat's paw, my little cat's paw. Now you could actually fill this with your clay if you wanted to. So you've got a positive of the cat paw or dog paw, whatever it is you want to do, dog noses. So you've got a positive of the impression, or you can take another little bit of silicone moulding compound, and what I've done is then once I've made this one and let it go hard, I then mix up another set of silicone moulding compound and push this in. So this is kind of a positive and negative, so this now becomes like a little stamp. So if I would rather have the clay with a little recessed pattern, hello Hilya, then I can push this in to get the pet paw in there that way. So, you know, there's options here to do paws, dog noses. I know that's a popular one. I don't know if I could do that, but there you go. So that's some ideas of using some of the silicone moulding compounds. Now, obviously you can take replicas. I'm going to do some demonstrations shortly. Obviously you can do replicas, but I just wanted to show you a few more. this was an amazing piece that came my way, and I had a wonderful lady by the name of Penny come and do a workshop with me, and she brought this piece of wood, and on the inside it's more like a tree bark, piece of tree bark, and on the inside of the tree bark there was all this wonderful like little trails and textures. So we took an impression using silicone moulding compound, and these are little insects that have eaten their way into the wood and created these little trails and things. But I think this makes the most amazing texture plate. And this one was taken from a piece of embroidered what was it? It was an embroidered belt actually, with a lot of embroidery on it, so you can see sort of the stitch and the embroidery, the patterns. But again, I really quite like the impression that this gives. So these are all sort of textures that you could use rather than a mold, but you know, using your molding compound to create a texture. So there's lots of commercial molds that you can buy. There's molds that are suitable for food, so a lot of cake decorating molds, they tend to be very deep and quite large, not always ideal for working with silver clay because they consume an awful lot of the silver, but it's quite possible to use them. You just need to be a little bit more conscientious about selecting the ones that you think you're gonna get the most out of, if you know what I mean. And these are some little tiny silicone molds. Again, you can purchase these on the internet, and these particular ones, these are like little shells and things. These are nail art molds. So if you go onto Amazon and put in nail art molds, there's a whole host of hundreds of these different little themed. You can get shells and bows and ribbons and all sorts. I've got a whole box full here, and I'm sure there's so many more you can get as well. There's roses, I've got bows, I've got hearts, there's oodles and oodles of different little molds here. But these can add some real interesting little details onto maybe some of your larger pieces that you're using or wanting to make. So these little nail art molds are brilliant. Oh, and these little nail art molds do lettering as well. So I have one of my regular students who they've got them in uppercase and lowercase lettering, and because it's so teeny tiny, it's wonderful. And she's done little names on tooth fairy boxes and things like that, and names of her grandchildren, which I think are really so sweet, on these tooth fairy boxes. So yeah, that's creating some different things with the molds. So I just wanted to show you. Can I find anything else? Pull anything else out? Got anything else I can show you? I love the shells, teeny tiny shells. So I'm going to do a little demo now of how I deal with some of these molds. Pick some up. And I know someone asked me before, or was asked about doing a three-dimensional mold, because yeah, we can do three-dimensional molding. I've got a little pair of earrings here, which if I show you, hang on, let me take one off instead of dangling it. So this is a little earring here, and it has this little hummingbird on, but the little hummingbird is 3D, so he's the same on both sides. There we go. If I show you, little hummingbird on both sides. So we can make little three-dimensional molds, so I'll show you how to do that as well, so you can have a little 3D mold. So I've got a couple of things in front of me that I'm going to mold, because they address different things really. So I'm just going to flick the camera down, and then I'll get going and show you some molding. So here we go. So you can see my desk, so you can see my messy desk. All right. So these that I've got in front of me here now, and let me shuffle forwards a bit. There we go. This is just a nice little seashell that I've got. I love this little seashells. And on my travels, or my holidays, I've collected some really teeny tiny shells. This is not so teeny tiny, but I don't want to make it so tiny that you can't really see what I'm doing. So this is a beautiful little shell. I love the textures on here. Now, making a 3D mold of this is possible, but I probably wouldn't. I probably just want to use some of this to take a mold of. So get my moulding compound out, which is this stuff. Now this particular moulding compound I'm using, we use on a one-to-one basis, so you can weigh it out if you want to. I tend to just scoop it out, roll it into a little ball, and eyeball. I've got the same amount. Hi, Wiz. Move your credit card. Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks. Oops. My bad. I'm having a sweat. Okay, so moulding compound. So I've just taken 2 little bits of moulding compound here, and as I say, I just eyeball them, get them roughly about the same. You can weigh them or measure them if you want to, but I just kind of take it like this. All right, so then you're ready to start mixing. So equal amounts, I squish it together and fold. Now I'm trying not to get too much air into here as well, so I try not to get air bubbles captured in it. So mix, 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 mix and fold, and it's going to go off really quickly if you spend too long over this. So once you've got it even in tone and colour, you're good to go. I give it one little hard roll like so, and because this is a 3-dimensional little shape, I'm just going to squish this down to be sort of flattish, and then I'm going to take my little seashell and push this in about halfway down. Okay, and now I will leave that alone, leave it alone completely. If I was going to do something like, I can't pick it up, like my little dragonfly here. Now he has got a little loop on the top, but he is reasonably flat. So rather than make some moulding compound and push the dragonfly into the mould, I would sooner do it the other way around. So taking some moulding compound again. Now be very vigilant about your moulding compound. Try not to contaminate one with the other. I tend to use little lolly sticks just to scoop it out, because I hate the stuff going up my nails. If I can get on my nails, but you really don't want to get green in your white and white in your green, or whatever colour is your moulding compound is. If you're using 2-part silicone moulding compound, try and keep them as clean as possible so you don't contaminate one with the other. Otherwise you might find big pots this size, about 70-80 quid, then you can find you'll end up with, you know, stuff that's gone hard in your pot. So be very vigilant about not mixing, contaminating your pots, I should say. So I've mixed up my silicone moulding compound into on their own initially, and now I've got 2 pea-sized pieces, and I'm going to mix, 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 mix. Gosh, it's warm. I'm very hot. So mixy, mix, mix, and roll it fast and hard in the heel of my hands. Now this time I'm going to go over the top like so to make my little mould, and I'm doing this on my little plastic surface here, so that as I turn it over and I can take a sneaky peek, and I can make sure that I've captured all the way around the edges. I'm not missing anything, but nor have I got any undercut, which it means where the silicone moulding compound would scooch all the way around and come on the underside as well. because that's going to make it rather difficult to get clay in and out. So I can see I've captured all the way around, got a nice outline to my little piece here, so I would leave this to cure as well. Now then, what if you've got something like this? Now this is a button, and it's got a little shank on the back of the button, so I'm quite literally going to cut that shank off the button so it's going to sit flat, because that will give me the best mould. I could do this bit, push it in, but if I can work over the top, then it's going to give me a flatter surface when I take the mould, and that'll be much easier for getting clay in and out of the mould. So let me grab a pair of pliers, and I literally just cut the shank off this little button. It may be that you need to file a little bit as well, so if you've still got a little bit sticking up, you might need to just get a file and just file down the excess, just to smooth it down a little more, so that sits nice and flat on your surface. So once again, you mix up your silicone moulding compound, your 2-part silicone moulding compound, over the top, just as you've done with the dragonfly, and then just leave it to cure. So it's going to take about, well, it says on here about 15 minutes to cure. Now I do find the warmer the environment, the quicker this will set. So as today is a very hot day, this is going to set really quickly. If you're in a cooler environment or it's a damp day, it seems to take a little longer to cure. So just bear that in mind. Now then, this is the, if I showed you the little hummingbirds, 3-dimensional hummingbirds before. So this is that little hummingbird that I had before, if you know what I mean. There he is, little hummingbird. So this is how I would take a mould of the hummingbird. So if I once again get a little bit of my silicone moulding compound, and a bit more of my silicone moulding compound, so I've got my 2 parts. I'm going to start to mix this together. Don't need a huge amount. There's a temptation to use way more than you actually need. Okay, so rolled that into a little ball, and I've started to squish this out into a little bit of a flat shape like so with my fingers. Then I'm going to put my little hummingbird on top of here and just begin to press it in a little. Now he's only going in part of the way, and then choose the back of your pencil, whatever it takes. Let me find something I'm going to push into this. I'll use my rubber tip tool, and I'm going to make 3 locating blobs. So just like 1, 2, 3 like that. Now I'm going to leave this to dry. You can see what I've done there. I'm going to leave this to cure, so that might take a good few minutes, and then after it's cured I will be putting a second layer over the top. So I'm going to create this 3-dimensional mould for my hummingbird. Should cure really quickly because it's so warm, it's so hot. Now, my little seashell already is starting to cure quite nicely. As I poke it with my nail, I can feel a little bit of give in there, and I can see it's giving a little bit of an impression with my nail, but it's bouncing back. But it's not fully cured yet, but it's not far off. That's just because it's so warm. Now it means you can pick it up. Now if you wanted to accelerate it, I've got my little cup warmer here. If I pop it on here and my little cup warmer, or if you want to pop it into a dehydrator or anywhere really warm on top of a radiator or airing cupboard or anything like that, it will cure even quicker. So I'm going to pop that on there as well. I'll lift this up I want to speed this up. I'm going to pop that on there too to cure. And lift this one up and pop that on there too. So this will speed that drying or curing process up a little quicker. Whoa, I'm hot. I'm hot. Now then, I've got another one here which is really small and super thin. This is like, it's almost like a piece of paper. It's like really thin. Now then, it will make a mould, but to get clay in and out of this is going to be terribly challenging without breaking it up. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's possible, but it'll be very challenging and very difficult. So just think carefully about what it is you do want to mould. You know, that's a challenge, to do something as thin and as skinny as that. So so this one now, because it's been sat on there, it has cured really quickly. Now I know I said it's normally 15 minutes, but the air temperature and the fact that I put it on here has sped that up. So I've now got an amazing little seashell mould. Beautiful, isn't it? Really nice. Gorgeous. So for my little hummingbird here, which is looking good too. Again, this is already cured. It's so hot. With the air temperature and sat on there, it's cured really well. Now this, while I've been able to take that out, I can still feel there's a degree of, I don't know what the word is, softness, I guess, in here. So I wouldn't use this as a mould straight away. I would leave this to cure a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Whew. There we go. So my little hummingbird now, I'm quite happy with the way he looks, and that moulding compound has really cured really quickly. So what I'm going to do is get a little bit of balm, if I can find my balm, a little tiny bit of balm, and just coat this around the silicone moulding compound and onto the little hummingbird himself, like so. And I'm going to take some more of my moulding compound. Here we go. This one and this one. Roughly equal amounts. Quite happy with that. Mix them together. Mix until you've got no marbling at all. And then I'm going to go over the top of these. So, over the top of here. So I'm going to wriggle it round like this. So it kind of really beds into the detail of the piece. So you can see it's kind of completely covered around the edge. Now I am going to pop this back on here to cure. Hopefully that'll cure it nice and quickly as well. And we'll get to have a little look at how this pops out. Right, I'm just going to put my moulding compounds away. Whew. See, it says on the top of here, before using warm parts A and B, well, you don't need to warm it. I've never warmed this up. Mould slightly to 21 to 26 degrees. Well, it's probably about that right now outside here. It's very hot. So I'm just going to put those to one side, and we're going to have a little look at this in just a minute. I'm going to let this cure. I'll come back to you. Hi. Come back to you here while this cures. And once it's cured, I'm going to show you that you can make your little 3D hummingbirds, if that's what you wanted to do. It's warm, isn't it? Anybody else really hot? Anybody else really loving this? I love the sunshine. I love the heat. I love the heat. Although I'm moaning about it. I'm not moaning really. I'm just happy. So, lots and lots of different ways you can use your moulds. While we're waiting for that to secure up a little more, I'll show you this piece, because this is made up of just lots and lots of little moulded elements. Some leaves, some starfish, some flowers, and they were all little moulded elements and just layered on top of one another. And this is a piece I made quite some time ago. So leaves, starfish, flowers, it's the right mixture of things. And I think I called this Ocean Garden, this one, because it was starfish and leaves and flowers. So I called it Ocean Garden. So it's the right mixture of all sorts of things. Whoa. Is this cured yet? Not yet, not yet. I really want it to cure quickly. I've always been nervous of a 3D double-sided moulds. This is helping my confidence. Give it a go, Wiz, honestly. Try with something small first. A little seashell or something like that. You need to avoid getting that undercut so it doesn't kind of get stuck in there. But the top tips are really only push the mould in halfway in the beginning, but remember those locating keys that you need. I've got another one here which is already done. If you imagine, this is something completely different, but if you imagine this is this is something inside here which will be revealed in a minute. So it's obviously 2 layers again. It's got those locating kind of points on the inside, but if it helps, you can always get a Sharpie. I just grab a Sharpie from up here. No way to put it. Sharpie from up here. If it helps, you can always just put some locating marks, like just put a couple of lines, one here, one here, one here, so that as you separate it, you've got those little lines to line up again. So that'll be something else you might want to do as well. That helps to relocate exactly how this goes back together. So this particular one, if I open it, it's like a little goddess. So if I show you on the inside, so you've got this little goddess and you've got those little locating marks. So as it goes together, it won't actually move. It just stays exactly where it is, if you know what I mean. Just because of the way I've moulded it and those little locating points, it's really stuck together. Let's see how this is getting on. Oh yeah, I can take this apart now. So this is my little hummingbird and I'm ready to peel this apart. I'll show it to camera. Peeling it apart, peeling it apart. There we go. 2 halves. Take that one out. Yeehaw. So there's the 2 halves of, which way up is that? Anyway, there's the 2 halves of my 3D mould. Now I'm just going to let this cool down a second, and then I'll put some clay into it. Let me just find some clay. I've got a little bit of clay here. I don't want to put a big lumpy bit in clay in. I've got a bit of clay here. Bit of clay here, just 5 grams. I'm going to open this up. Okay, probably only need about half of that clay. Put that under there. Fast and hard in the heel of my hand. Whoops. And roll that up. Now then, this is my 2-part mould, but I've kind of got a deep bit and a shallow bit. So I'm going to put my clay into the deep bit. Finger and thumb, I'm going to start pinching it in, but I obviously don't want to pinch it to the point it's flat. I do want it to be sticking up a little bit because we've got to put the other side on. So yeah, roughly get it into the shape so it's just mushed in there. And now I'm going to find those locating keys, if you know what I mean. put my glasses on, I'll see so much better. There we go. So location keys, locating keys, which are there, there and there. As I put that together, I'm just making sure that it's kind of slotting into those little pegs, if you know what I mean, those locating keys. Now I'm gonna squish, 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 squish with my fingers, and just keep going, really pinch. So Helen says, when you make an original to mould, try using modelling clay. It's a good way to practice. It's a good way to practice, especially if you're worried about wasting silver clay. Yeah, I guess so. Got here late, will be up. Yeah, thank you, Linda. But it's 7 in the morning here in Canada. Sorry it's so early, Linda, but thank you for joining me. Yeah, great tip, Helen. Using some modelling clay, something like Vimo or polymer clay, you can do that. I've moulded metal stamps like a bee and an Indian wooden stamp, so you also have positive and negatives. Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, pinchy, pinch, 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 pinch. Right, so now I'm ready to pop this out. Now what you can see now is, you can see I've got my little hummingbird, but I've got an awful lot of flashing, and flashing is all this kind of excess bit that's around the edge here, from the hummingbird. So just using my needle tool, I'm just gonna quickly sort of run round to remove some of that excess. This clay is drying so quick. Okay, so there we go, just lifted away the majority of the excess. I haven't been too pedantic about getting right up to the edges. It's a little rough and ready at the moment, but you can see I've taken some of the excess off, and then I can go back again, get my little locating little bits in there and give it another little squidge. Squidge, 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 squidge. Very technical term, isn't it? Squidge. Give it another little squidge. And it's looking even sharper, so I can take a little bit more off. A little bit more of that flashing. Just takes a little bit more of that excess away. That all goes under my pot. And one last time I'm going to do this again. So locate all those little bits together. Squidge, 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 squidge. Really down. And there's still a tiny bit of flashing. If you can see around the edges, there's still a little bit of flashing. But that excess clay is so thin, it's like wafer thin. But I'm not going to take that off right now. I'm actually going to just pop this out. Now normally I'd be doing this on the table, but I'm going to do this in midair so you can see what I'm doing. And here he is. Ooh, there's my little hummingbird. Now, because if I wanted to make it into earrings, as I did this one, okay, you can either pop in some little screw eyes, which I think is what's in here, screw eye top and bottom, or if you wanted to make it into a bead, you can start to push in little screw eyes, or you can push in a piece of wire if you wanted it to act like a bead. So right now I would just take this little guy. If you're going to put your little screw eyes in, or push a piece of wire through all the way through its middle of its body, you could do that. Perhaps I'll have a go at that. So if I take a piece of wire, and I'm going to support this while I just put this through, just push this little wire all the way through his body like so. If you can see what I've done. Now, as I say, I've got all that little bit of extra flashing around the edges, but for now I will just leave this to dry because that is so wafer thin. Once it is completely dried, you will find that just flakes away really easily. So there's my little hummingbird. That's doing a 3D mold, so you've got, you know, the same on both sides. So I hope that offered you a few tips. I'm just going to pop them on a little cup warmer there to dry. Where are we? So I've moulded metal stamps. Yeah, thanks for your stamping. Moulding metal stamps, that's great. So I hope that's given you a few tips on working with moulds. Oh, I'm not finished, am I? Let me do this one. This one of my bear head. I wanted to say that, you know, this is quite deep now, this little mould, and I wouldn't want to push and fill that with clay. So let me find some more clay in my pot. More clay. So here is what I would do. So bit of clay, fast and hard in the heel of my hands. Now to make my little bear, his nose is the furthest point away, so I just create like this into a bit of a cone shape, and I'm going to push that point into his nose, and then I'm going to start to push the clay into the mold, finger and thumb, pushing right in, and kind of, I want to really make sure I get all the definition of the detail. So I'm not filling it up to the top to be level. I'm actually going to make a little bit of a hollow in here, so that one, I'm not using so much silver, and two, it's not so heavy. So, you know, it doesn't have to be filled to the brim. So I don't know if you can see, I hope you can see there that it's quite beveled. It's got quite a hollow in there, so it's not filled up to the brim. Now I can pop this out of the mould, or I can just try, let's see if I can do this. I'm just trying to do this on here, so I'll show you. So pop this out the mould, flex, come on, out you come. If I lean on there, it's going to tip my computer off. I think I need to do it down here. There you go, flex the mould, His little ear's stuck, come on. It's popped out, there we go. So, there's my little bear again. There he is. So, I'll pop him to dry, just there. If you're doing something that's not so deep, so something say like this, then yes, you can pop your little bit of clay in here, and to cut down on the necessary sort of cleaning and tidying you do later, so you can push all your clay in here. Now you'll end up with lots of excess on the surface, so to get rid of most of the excess, you're going to need your tissue blade or a craft knife or a rule, whatever comes to hand. Can't find my tissue blade right now, it's usually that. So push down with your thumb, up with your fingers. My thumb's on top and pushing down, my fingers are underneath. Now I've gone about halfway across, and I'm going to swipe to the right like so, and then I've got this bit of excess which I just get rid of, and then I turn the mould around, thumb on top, fingers underneath, swipe to the right, take the excess away, and once again just pack it into the mould. Now because you've done a really nice swipe and got a really nice clean outline to your mould, as you pop this out, let's see if I can pop this out, pop it out into my fingers, Let me do it onto a piece of Teflon. Pop this out onto. Whoa. Oh, there you go. I just popped out onto a piece of Teflon. Now there's going to be very, very little cleaning, filing and tidying to do, because you've done all the work of making sure that you've got a really nice clean outline to that mould as you've swiped away all the excess. So this is really the purpose of making the mould that way up, if you know what I mean. So you end up with a really nice flat base, so that when you do take your tissue blade or your rule or whatever it is, craft knife, across it, you've got a nice flat surface, and then you've got a nice clean profile of your piece. So there we go. I hope that's added a few tips. If you've picked up something new, that's great. If I've just repeated everything you already know, then I'm sorry. But thank you for joining me. So thanks again for coming along to my Workbench Wednesday, and I hope to see you all again next week for something else. I don't know what I'm doing next week, but thank you anyway. Take care, folks. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.